Good day, friends. I hope you're doing really well. This is Tracy Brown, and my team and I of trauma-informed dietitians provide a space where you can feel safer in your own skin. That's kind of what we do, and we do that through the lens of food and body movement and nervous system health regulation. So, just to kind of celebrate this big task, honestly, that we've been working on for a long time to help support you all. I wanted to kind of go over some maybe new to you information. For some of you, it's been like you've known this for years, and it's just a great validation. So we're going to talk about deprivation-driven eating today. And the tool I was talking to you about is that we have finished a review of the Intuitive Eating, the original book. And, it's a pretty dense book, and I can imagine for people who have a lot of fight, flight, freeze, or please in their system, and a lot of viewing all new food behavior change endeavors. If you haven't dismantled the idea of yourself being a project yet or being on a program yet, I think it's really important that sometimes we have to have a lot of repetition to be able to recognize I'm not a project to be fixed. This is a journey I have to go on to undo all the damage from diet culture. And we tend to basically pursue even eating disorder recovery, non-diet recovery through that lens of black and white thinking and perfectionism. And I just want to get this over with. And the reality is you're always going to be a human until you're gone in this journey of being attuned to your body's needs. That's not a program. That's just living and breathing, basically. And it takes a lot of time. So we did a summary of that book just to kind of have a quick reference for yourself of checking in with yourself. How am I doing weekly or monthly or every 3 months, as well as just a quick review when you need it. So that's what we did this for. And something that's not a ton in the book, but a huge focus. And I think they worded it maybe a little differently than we like to, but it's just all words, right? Semantics, that's the right word. I love the word deprivation-driven eating because 95% of the time when people come to see us, they're not emotional eating in a very traditional sense. Yes, there's emotion behind it. And in the next video this week, we're going to talk about actual emotional eating. It doesn't mean that deprivation-driven eating does have emotion in it, but there is a very findable, linkable deprivation within the food intake that day or the course of a couple days. And there's also mental restriction and deprivation. So, and thirdly, there's also needs-based deprivation. We're not even considering what we need to have what, that goes into emotional eating as well. But deprivation is driving all of it. All right. So I'm going to actually have some definitions. I pulled it up on my screen here. So I'll be looking up a bit to read it because I want to just get the nuances to it and so you have a good, see which pieces of that land in your system for you. Okay. So we define deprivation-driven eating, and from this, it's a drive from having been restricted or limited, controlled in the food that you might want to eat or that you might need to eat. Okay. It will manifest physically. It manifests by having signals that aren't exactly growling or obvious, open throttle. I feel hunger in my belly. It's gonna be from just this I gotta eat. And then once you eat, you feel whew, kind of thing. But you don't perceive that because if you've been dieting for any amount of time, most people, or you're trying to fix binging through dieting restriction, most people overlook some of the different or more subtle forms of hunger, or they only eat when they're starving. And there's so much beauty in the nuance of the signals that our body gives us before we're starving. We discount that because we're just not used to listening to that. We've pushed it away. All right. So deprivation can manifest physically by not providing necessary foods for health and well-being as well. Deprivation can manifest psychologically. There's limited freedom to eat foods as preferred. We criticize ourselves. We internalize other people's criticisms and fear of judgment for our food choices. and being deprived of that satisfaction. All right, so that's the definition of deprivation-driven eating. It's both physiologic and it's also psychological. Okay, and there's the deprivation of needs, right? Who tends to struggle with deprivation-driven eating? Basically, anyone who hasn't had free access to food, when you feel guilt for eating what you want to eat, histories of dieting and weight cycling, histories of just getting too hungry, with a totally normal and natural response of overeating. Not stopping, like basically stopping too soon. So if you have a history of like, I eat when I'm starving and I stop the moment that hunger goes away, versus I don't ever let myself get to satisfaction. On a hunger scale, let's say of sensations, and you number them 0 through 10, it would be somebody who always stops when they feel little food in their stomach and then they're hungry again an hour and a half, 2 hours. You never have that experience of like, oh, I'm done. There's a deprivation of that, which means you stay food preoccupied. Your body stays preoccupied, okay? Food is seen as good or bad, healthy, unhealthy, and there's just a constant background desire to change the body, or there's this background of like wanting validation about the body, or there's this background, either loud, siren, or maybe just a little whisper of, I can finally feel okay about myself if I earn it even. And some of us are very attached to our need to earn validation. It's just all we know. And of course that has to be dismantled into something more stable that's built on something solid, right? So how do we heal this? I'm giving you here's the things and here's how we do it. So I'm going to tell you that today is we have to lift the restrictions. We have to dismantle all that moralization around food. We have to make food available. It has to be where we see it and we know that it's there. Those times when we stay super busy and there's no access to food. So of course you're going to stop at a gas station. Of course you're going to stop at the Walgreens or CVS and get some food at 2 because you barely ate breakfast, your lunch wasn't sufficient, and your body is just feeling pulled. That's not the same thing as like I'm eating to dissociate. There's a difference, okay? Or wanting to eat to like escape. That's not the same thing, okay? We have to stop restricting calories, stop restricting food groups. We have to do these things. And I know some of you are probably feeling activated because it's like, well, what about this health condition or that one? It's like supportive eating will come as the restrictions are only done in necessity. All right. So if you have to be on FODMAPs, it's temporary. It's not a long-term solution or fix. If it's protein, fat, carb modulations, it's only done for an outcome to let your body heal. And what you're doing now may not be what you're doing in 6 months or 2 years. You're doing what you need to do in the now time for an outcome, but it's also not punitive and it's also not pride-based and being austere and all those kind of things, or harm avoidance. Like I'm doing this way of doing things so my doctor will be less mean to me, whatever the situation is, okay? We are shifting. So what are some of the things we can do about deprivation-driven eating? We are shifting from being, again, black or white, all or nothing, punitive, win, failure-based, to responsive. We're doing responsive eating to what the needs are, okay? We're working towards eating in response to internal cues most of the time. If you're struggling with internal cues, you are going to need some gentle, we're going to call it containment, maybe some other words could be used as structure, to ensure you're eating enough. We got to get to some minimums. And most people I work with who don't think they're dieting are usually still dieting in really subtle, small ways. They just don't know it because it's less bad than it used to be. That still can cause deprivation-driven eating. Okay? When you are like, know that you know in your heart, your mind, your conscience, your soul, whatever, is that you know that restricting food intake will cause deprivation-driven eating. You are like, that's not a morality-based thing. That's not a less willpower thing. It's just facts. Like, okay, I look outside and If the wind is blowing, the wind is blowing. Yeah, that's all there is to it. How to continue to work on healing deprivation-driven eating is that you explore meal mixes and the outcome. You look at everything. Every meal is a potential experiment to learn and to grow, not of something I got to do it right every single time or I'm failing. Okay, you give yourself some space to become, a competent eater again, and that you're eating. You want it to be pleasurable. You want it to match where your body is at this season of your life. So be pleasurable and be supportive and meet needs and, as neutral as we can get it to be, and as separated from your value and worth. Those are all things, everything I talked about in this video will help you heal deprivation-driven eating. So if you like this video, let us know about it in some kind of way. If you are interested in the new summary guide we put together, it'll be in the comment section below, so you can just go get that. There's just a little link to sign up for it on our website, and that's it. And so just so you know, in the next video, we're going to talk a little bit about more, very more obvious emotional eating. Today was deprivation, and it can feel emotional, but when you really boil it down to there's a psychological and a physiologic deprivation. You can trace it back, you can find it, and it's not, you're not willing to hurt yourself. Sometimes we just don't know better when we've been programmed to be depriving. And so we're trying to heal that in these kind of ways. So I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. If this was helpful, share it with your friends. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.